Okay.
Welcome Wargamers. Today we are continuing our series on the Warhammer 40k 8th edition Start Collecting Box rules as we go through the indexes and some of the new codexes as they come out. Today's video was requested by Deegan Montecino. He did a request in our Necron video, I believe, asking for Skitarii. So I went out and got the Imperial 2 index book, and we're going to dig into that today. So let's get started. Alright, so the Skitarii Start Collecting Box comes with 1 Tech Priest Dominus, 1 Onager Dune Crawler, and 10 Skitarii Vanguard, or you can build them as Rangers. Now, as always, I start off with kind of initial thoughts, kind of like a bird's eye view of what this box really kind of brings to you. The first thing I want to point out that this actually fulfills the requirements of a patrol detachment. That 10 units of Vanguards or Rangers, however you want to build them, both of those units start in increments of 5. So you can have 5 Rangers, 5 Vanguard, and an HQ, obviously, and that gives you a patrol detachment, meaning this is a legal army to start with. Not all of the Start Collecting boxes do that, so I always want to highlight it when it does, because if you want to get a small, tiny game in with a friend, or just try out some cool new models, these kinds of boxes are the perfect ways to do it, and you can still kind of play a lot of the games and scenarios and stuff like that that require detachments to be used. Now, the keyword that you're going to be looking out for in this box is Forge World. Okay, that's what the Skitarii and Cult Mech, they organize themselves on these Forge Worlds, where they produce munitions and sciencey stuff like that, all kinds of cool things. What's interesting, though, is that because, spoiler alert, every model in this set has the Forge World keyword, it actually removes a problem that this box had back in 7th edition. Namely, the Tech Priest Dominus, who came with it, the HQ, was part of a different faction called Cult Mechanicus, and the two did not really work well together. So what that means is now you have a new lease on life, because now the HQ actually functions really, really well with the troops inside the box. And the last little thing I want to note here is that, one, this is a great monetary value for the models that you get. If you're looking at starting an AdMech army, this is just a great place to start, and then you can use the Tech Priest Dominus for bits and do all kinds of cool stuff, but obviously the Rangers and the Dune Crawler are all awesome, awesome values. What I also want to point out, along with the monetary value, is that these models aesthetically capture what this army is all about. I'm going to put the picture back up on the screen here. They just look awesome. They look like Adeptus Mechanicus is supposed to be. This awesome kind of retro sci-fi aesthetic and feel. It was something that really captivated a lot of us when they started being discussed a lot in the lore, as well as the teasers for the models first came out. So now I want to start with going model by model in the box and kind of exploring what you get. We're going to start with the Tech Priest Dominus. One thing I want to point out about this guy is that he is one of the single beefiest non-character models out there, meaning he's not unique, he doesn't have a name, you can take more than one in an army, but he's a tough nut to crack. He has a 2-up, 5-up, meaning 2-up armor save, 5-up invulnerable save, and every single turn he can heal D3 damage. He's like self-repairing mechanisms kick in, and he can do that. So what you get is this, he's fairly slow, but I mean he's a big, tanky leader guy, and he does quite a bit for the army. One thing that's cool is that he really is a mechanic type. He's very much a backline supporter who doesn't die very easily. For example, he can also pick a vehicle near him and he'll deal D3 damage a turn. That's really, really awesome because you also get a Dune Crawler, this huge tank that is, it's not, we'll get to the tank in a little bit, it's not the weakest thing, but it's also not the most heavily armored vehicle out there. So keep that in mind. It's really, really nifty to have. He does have a command ability, which is awesome whenever starter box leaders do. Basically, in 6 inches around him, all of the same Forge World keyword can reroll hit rolls of 1, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you talk about the amount of firepower that this army can bring, that actually is really, really good, especially because it's an aura ability. So he could be way far back. It could be a tank 6 inches in front of him, and then that tank has, say, if it has an Icarus array or something like that, like 48 inches ahead of him. So you get the bonuses stretched along the entire battlefield. You can do quite a bit of work. And remember, it's not choosing a single unit, it's like an aura, so everyone around him gets to shoot better. It's really, really awesome. Now, he does come with some optional weapons. Do them if you want. I'm going to just do whatever you want. That's kind of the general theme of this basic channel. But they're not stellar, okay? Like, there's none of them that I look at and I go, that needs to happen, right? I mean, there's some kind of no-brainer ones, some that are like good strong cases for, like the Agonizer on an Archon kind of thing. But these, I mean, the thing is like there are really good weapon options for him. However, because he's not the fastest and because he is more of a supporting character, is he really going to be in range for all of those things? So keep that in mind. It's completely based upon what you want to use this character for, and so it's very, very situational, but generally speaking, you don't get bogged down by options here. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Skitarii Vanguard. Now, I'm going to talk about the Vanguard because that's kind of what the box pictures you to build. We can talk about the Rangers at the end, but honestly, they're kind of very, very similar. Kind of two sides of the same coin, if you will. They both have a 4-up, 6-up, 4-up armor save, 6-up invulnerable save, which makes them pretty good for your basic infantry. They come in units of 5 when they start. You can also upgrade from there, obviously. Their base weapons are different, the Rangers and the Vanguard. Vanguard have a 18-inch, I believe it's Assault 3 weapon. It's a ton of shots. It's a very, very medium range weapon, so you'd want to be huffing it and shooting to be able to do these things, to be able to get the full benefit of it. The way I would kind of imagine these guys working is clearing objectives in particular. Like what I think ideally would happen was these guys would run up, jump massive firepower onto objective, clear enemies off, and then they don't stop there. They just keep moving when the Rangers come up behind and then secure that objective with longer range firepower, things like that. So one's kind of the taking positions, one's kind of the holding position type thing, and that's why I quantify them like that, because they are actually so similar in what they do. One thing that's interesting is they actually reduce the toughness of non-vehicle models that are within an inch of them by 1. So anything that can hurt those things that's in base-to-base contact, in combat with them, just gets a lot better. So it's kind of an odd buff or debuff, I guess, to your enemy, but buff to you, that anything that you throw them at instantly becomes a lot weaker, which means that on paper they can actually engage things fairly well that are somewhat above their weight class. Say like a lot of Nurgle stuff has higher toughness and things like that. So keep that in mind. They do have a little bit of tactical flexibility there. I don't think that they're a melee unit per se by any stretch, but they do have options for your army as a whole. Now, one thing I do want to comment here is that these guys have a ton of weapon options, like a lot, too much to cover. I'm not even going to bother. What I would say though is just practical steps is when you get a unit, decide what you want it to do and then equip it to do that specific job. If you want something that's going to be more like a run and gun, don't load it up with heavy weapons. Keep it to the assault stuff, or at least things that don't have any kind of modified, certain keyword, it's just a gun basically. Keep it simple to exactly what you need it to do. If you want to sit back further and fire, go ahead and do that. If you want it to be sort of a sniper unit, you can dock 2 guys and put the sniper rifle team on there. There's a lot of options, like I said. However, it's finding the one that's going to be the best fit for your army. Because you can go hog wild and make this one unit incredibly expensive, but it's such a huge chunk of your army, and there's no way it's going to be able to do all the things that you've equipped it to do. And the last model in the box is the Onager Dune Crawler. This is sort of the tank, the large centerpiece model that almost all these boxes get, and it's awesome. It is a really, really exciting and cool looking model. And what's even awesome is that the Tech Priest now works with it. Every turn he heals at D3 damage. He has the Forge World keyword so that the actual cannons on the tank itself are able to reroll hit rolls of 1 as well. So all of those things synergize. Everything in this box works together really, really well, and the Dune Crawler is no exception. Now, just like the infantry, he does come with a ton of weapon options. There are a lot of gun options for this thing. One of the most popular ones is the Icarus Array. He has 3 weapon profiles. It's you choose one gun, and then every time you shoot, you choose one of these 3 profiles. They're more geared towards flyers, but they're not useless, especially when you're rerolling ones to hit on anything else. So keep that in mind. There are a lot of things going for this unit. It has a lot of potential. What you need to do as you're kind of thinking about how to build your army, just again, decide what you want it to do. I highly recommend magnetizing this guy. It's kind of a pain with certain builds and the way it kind of comes together. But you'll get a lot more value out of it if you do, because being able to swap between all of these crazy awesome weapon options is going to be key to finding out what works for your playstyle, what works for the army that you have, and just frankly what you like. Now, like I said earlier, he does have a 3-up, 5-up, so he has just a normal 3-up save, 5-up invuln. He can reroll save rolls of 1 if he's in like a unit. So like if you have multiple Dune crawlers near each other, they can kind of share this buff where they have to reroll save rolls of 1, like a squadron. That's what I'm thinking of, which is awesome. It's really great. He has 11 wounds, so he's he's a little bit beefier than say like a Dark Eldar Raider, certainly higher toughness, and so he can do quite a bit more on the battlefield. He's not going to disintegrate like a Raider will. He's going to be there in the fight, having fun, and so yeah, it's just like I said. Don't think of him as like a, say, like a Lehman Russ or something other like Land Raider, some big monster thing that's going to crash into the enemy. This is definitely, think of it more as a support artillery piece, more like a Basilisk or something like that, where the point is to stay back and push forward in terms of getting the gun where it needs to be, but not so much in terms of ramming the enemy head on. So now that we've reviewed the units, every time I do these videos, I stop, I take a step backward, and I ask 2 fundamental questions that I think should be the crux of all start boxes for any game, any system. And those are, 1, do the models here represent the faction well? Like if I pick up this box, will I understand kind of the idea of what Adeptus Mechanicus is all about, or Skitarii specifically? And does this box give you a good start to that army? A lot of times you have these boxes where they, give you tools that are like the army so you can identify what the playstyle is like, but they don't give you a good start, as in like base models to get going and start actually building an army. And so those are the ones I want to ask right now. Now the first one, does this represent the faction well? I think absolutely. Both in terms of aesthetics, like we talked about earlier, as well as the fact that the models that you get represent a lot of synergy based around the Forge World keyword, which everything is going to have. You're going to need to learn basically how to use combined arms, large artillery pieces, tanks, things like that, as well as infantry. The infantry also are heavy compared to, say, guardsmen, something really, really light, and a lot tougher, beefier, expensive, and they also have a slew of weapon options, mostly in the mid to long range kind of weapon range, but they can get up there and mingle as well. All of those things combined come together to give you a Star Collecting box that is a legal army. It's a patrol detachment that represents the feel of the faction very, very well, and also gives you quite a bit of model diversity. With you can build 4 different units out of here if you do 5 Rangers and 5 Vanguard. And the second question, is this a good start to the army? And that one, it's a little more dependent on where you want to go with this. Say you wanted to build a combined Adeptus Mechanicus, which is the Cult Mechanicus and Skitarii combined thing, then it's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's the best there is. You're not going to be anything better. If you wanted to go Skitarii, yeah, it's a good start. Yeah, it's pretty good. In terms of you get one of the squad of infantry that can build different ways. You get a tank in the Dune Crawler. You get an HQ. There are other options available for you, but yeah, they're great. You get good support in terms of everything's based on shooting, so the commandability of the Dominus is really, really great there. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's a fantastic start to that kind of army. Now, if you wanted to say start Cult Mechanicus specifically, no, because the only thing in here that's regarding that is the Dominus, and that's just not worth it. But yeah, if you wanted to do a full Adeptus Mechanicus army, there's no reason why you wouldn't build at least 2 kits of these just to get you started with basic infantry and heavy support. Now I want to tap onto a topic that we had talked about a little bit earlier when we talked about the Vanguards, and that is, do you build the Vanguards or the Rangers, or combine them? You do 5 and 5. And there's really not a clear answer, because here's the thing, okay? They're kind of the same thing, okay? The only thing that really is different is the Vanguard have the -1 to toughness buff when someone's in base-to-base contact, or within 1 inch of them, so functionally base-to-base. They also, them and the Rangers have different base weapons. The base weapon on the Vanguard is assault based, so you want to be moving and shooting, whereas the Rangers are definitely longer range, but they want to stay planted. They don't get a bonus for those kinds of things. Other than that, they're functionally the same thing. They have a ton of weapon options. They're both very much almost identical. So again, it just depends on what you want to do. If you want to experiment with different ways to play, I would definitely say go 5 and 5. If you already have, 10 of one, say you just were walking around and saw a box of Rangers and you grabbed it, and you built them as Rangers, now I would say, go for Vanguard. Try something different. There's really nothing is so absurdly compelling about one than the other to make you, there's no wrong decision is kind of what I'm trying to say. Like I said earlier, I think that every model in this army has a role. That's why they're also elite. So you can have the melee guys, who I can't remember their name right now, but like the super robot-y ones, go in and be absolute blenders. They can complement the Vanguard, who ran in and shot, and now everything near them has -1 toughness. Well, now all of a sudden this other unit comes in, and they're fighting against a lower toughness enemy. And then from the backfield have Dune crawlers being supported by Rangers and all these things kind of firing down all the time. So they all have to work in tandem. Point is, there's no real wrong decision, like I said earlier. Just pick one and then try something else when you get into the box. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here, and it's really important, is something called the Canticles of the Omnissiah. These are basically weaponized programs that the HQ kind of shares with his team. And the way this kind of takes form is every single turn you can choose one of these abilities. If you choose, you can never choose the same one twice. Or you can roll, and it's like a D6 chart. These include everything from bonuses to hit and to wound and movement shenanigans, and there's just kind of a whole slew of things. They're just little tiny bonuses to give you more options. Now, I remind you, if they roll, say you roll a 6 and you get one of those abilities, you can roll a 6 again. It's the only way to get the same one twice. However, obviously you have no control over it. So keep that in mind. You do have some pretty cool abilities there. Honestly, when you talk about the start collecting box level of stuff, they're not going to matter very much. So just keep that in mind. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Look at developing the army more in terms of unit variety and weapon variety rather than kind of playing for the Canticles of the Omnissiah like you had to do back in the last edition. And those are my thoughts on the Skitarii Start Collecting box. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click subscribe and share it with a friend. I'd love to hear more feedback about it. I try to respond to every single comment, guys, as I try to build a community here. I'd love to hear your feedback as well as ways I can improve. Next up, we'll be taking a look at the Astra Militarum and the Militarum Tempestus boxes. Thank you so much, and happy wargaming.